The global challenges on all matters environmental, social and governance, ESG, require a global response. Both COVID-19 and the Black Lives Matter movement have shone a spotlight on ESG considerations. There is a growing realization corporate culture cannot continue to pursue business decisions which ignore long-term consequences. If businesses set a credible example, they can work closely with executive branches to mobilize all financial and corporate institutions to integrate changes which will support the overarching objective of the European Green Deal, an aim to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, ensure diversity and inclusion strategies continue to be implemented and improved, and integrate strong governance mechanisms to maintain an effective correlation between strategic goals and results. It is also widely acknowledged ESG factors are now being considered alongside the traditional metrics in the investment process, and investors have warned that, where their expectations are not met, there are 3 courses of action: engagement, voting, and divestment. Our team, ESJ, are now going to present key ESG issues which we think Ken Murphy should address in order to uphold robust ESG practices, to ensure a culture of understanding and sustainability is built across all aspects and units of Tesco's, to create long-term value financially, socially and ecologically.
Serving approximately 79 million customers each week, Tesco's represents a significant player in shaping pro-environmental behaviour, which stretches past point-of-sale contact to the wider field-to-fork supply chain. As industry leaders, Tesco's have considered their environmental obligations by forming a partnership with the international non-governmental organisation WWF to formulate a universal metric for sustainable practices. However, with issues on climate warming growing, more pressure will be placed on the supermarket heavyweights to lead the way in the climate fight. Ultimately, Brexit offers a unique opportunity. UK supermarkets currently rely on the EU for 26% of food imports. Tesco's can therefore look to domestic suppliers as a source of more local and sustainable supply. Perhaps the biggest challenge faced by Tesco over the coming decades will be the exponential growth in food demand, estimated to increase 70% by 2050. With UK land use already saturated by the agriculture sector, how are Tesco's planning to increase supply whilst keeping to strict climate objectives laid out by international governance and societal pressures? Particular emphasis should be placed on heightened concern over UK biodiversity loss and carbon emissions from agriculture.
Demonstrating respect for human rights is ever more important for businesses. The social limb of the ESG criteria seeks to implement robust policies and processes to identify, prevent, or mitigate adverse human rights consequences. In light of Dame Sarah Thornton's report, which discovered 36% of financial industry employees think their organisation has no influence in combating modern slavery and human trafficking, and the unprecedented momentum behind developments in the business and human rights space, like the proposed new EU-level mandatory human rights due diligence legislation, it is a critical time for companies to further the social ESG initiatives over the course of 2021. The approach to human rights statement published by Tesco acknowledged labour right violations in global supply chains can be systemic. In order to address them, the report expressed an understanding of the root causes is required, in addition to active collaboration with suppliers. Past practice, which included conducting ethical audit programs, could overlook hidden or systemic issues like modern slavery because the most serious risks to human rights abuse occur further down the supply chain in absence of direct commercial relationships. To integrate human rights considerations, Tesco now has a broad due diligence process, with the intention of allocating resources to the areas of highest risk, wherever this is in the supply chain. The due diligence has a framework of 5 stages and includes setting key financial performance indicators on each of the 4 areas of strategy: forced labour, gender equality, sustainable livelihoods, and workers' representation. Considering that Tesco operations extend beyond the UK to other countries in the world, how will Tesco ensure the empirical data for risk assessment practice is gathered in an established systemic fashion across the supermarket chain overseas in order to identify the varying levels of vulnerability of different workers?
Having a strong form of corporate governance is an integral pillar in supporting a company's board to deliver its strategic goals and maintain its long-term sustainable growth. Corporate governance refers to the mechanisms and processes used by various parties to control and operate the business. In the UK, public companies like Tesco should adhere to the country's corporate governance code. In essence, corporate governance is a way that ensures that the company is running for the best interest of all stakeholders. When evaluating corporate governance, there are various issues that need to be considered. Fairness, transparency, leadership, stakeholder engagement, and accountability are at the top of the list. In light of the pandemic, it is important to touch on aspects like stakeholder engagement, workers' rights, and executive remuneration. There has been reports by Tesco employees who had to suffer from reduced pay over holidays and overtime hours, while others reported not receiving equal pay. As part of the governance mechanism, it is important to recognize the importance of employees in running the business, especially in such times where human assets are the most valuable and the most at risk. Tesco could honor its employees who worked throughout the pandemic with some form of ownership of the company, which is a governance model that is widely developed in continental Europe and has proved to provide a greater incentive and a sense of belonging to the employees. Furthermore, in 2014, Tesco has seen a scandalous corporate governance failure, where it overstated its profits by 750 million, resulting in a scandal that put the stock price 50% down. Potential investors would have concerns over the company's internal controls and management. They have to answer what governance issue did Tesco tackle after its failure in 2014, and the board of directors need to be vigilant of any issues tackling the company and resolve any internal obstacles before they affect the corporate image.